Hey everybody, welcome to the Dual Dialogue podcast, the inaugural episode. My name is Cameron. I'm an entertainment journalist here to talk about the latest film from one of the biggest auteurs of, I guess you could say cinema history or modern day cinema, or like the last 30 years. But I'm not alone. This podcast is called Dual Dialogue for a reason. My guest today is William J. Stribling. He's a filmmaker, writer, writing lecturer, and pretty big PTA fan, I would say. Would you say that's accurate?
That's very accurate. Yeah.
Nice. The aim with this podcast is not just to talk about movies, but to talk about movies that I think other people would like to talk about too. Not just things that I find interesting, but movies I think are suited to people I know or people the people I'm talking with are passionate about. So I wanted to pick Paul Thomas Anderson's latest film, One Battle After Another, because Will, you're a PTA fan, but also you know so much about story structure and filmmaking. I should give a little context. The reason you're a connection for me is you were a screenwriting lecturer of mine when I was in film school, and I'd love to just break down this film with you, hear your thoughts on it. One Battle After Another is probably my favorite film of the year. I've seen it twice. I know you've also seen it twice, and you saw it
Yes.
in some of the premium formats they released it in, right?
Yeah. The first time I saw it was in the IMAX 70 millimeter
Hmm.
up at City Walk. And the second time was in VistaVision at the Vista.
Hmm.
So that, yeah, I saw it four or 5 days apart from each other. And I'm glad I saw it a second time. I think I was able to appreciate so much more in the second viewing. It's such an overwhelming film, right?
Hmm.
So like that first viewing, it just kind of happens to you,
Hmm.
especially my first screening was the IMAX 70 mil. So the screen is so epically large that your field of vision is entirely consumed
Hmm.
by the screen.
Hmm.
Um, and it's loud, and that theater has incredible like surround sound, and it was just I don't know, the perfect way to see it. The Vista was a little bit different. The screen is quite a bit smaller. It's VistaVision, which there's like a novelty to it, but it's still
Hmm.
just a 35 millimeter projector just turned on its side, basically,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
So like there's something cool about seeing that print. They announced before the screening that that print was struck from the original cut negative of the film. So there's something cool about that. Uh, on I think Wednesday or Thursday of last week, you probably saw this, but the film burned up at the Vista, like the film
Oh,
melted
I
and interrupted the screening. Yeah.
hmm yeah, it's a film that just in how it's shot, I mean, yes, it was shot for these camera formats, but it demands to be seen on such a massive screen because there's so many shots where your eyes go all around trying to take in everything that's on camera. And like I said, I've seen it twice, and you brought up a very interesting point about you wanted to see it a second time, and the two screenings I saw it, different things jumped out to me in each screening that thinking back on it as a whole, it really made me appreciate the whole film as like one giant thing.
I'm
Um,
curious to hear about the difference between the two audiences you had, because the two
mhm,
audiences that I had were responding very differently to
mhm.
the movie. I'm curious if you had that same experience or if it was pretty consistent.
It was pretty consistent. Well, to go into that, I'll give a little background on this movie for anyone that doesn't know kind of the general premise. So this movie is a project that PTA has Paul Thomas Anderson has said he's been working on for approximately like 10, 20 years. Um, it's a very loose adaptation of the novel Vineland by Thomas Pynchon. Leonardo DiCaprio, his first role with PTA, he's part of this revolutionary group known as the French 75. They kind of run afoul of the American military. We'll go into it a bit more, but kind of stuff hits the fan for them. They have to disband. He has a child. 16 years later, the military's back on his back, I guess. Kidnaps his daughter, played by Chase Infinity. We'll talk about all the actors in their roles. Um, but let's just say being out of the game for so long has left Leo's character, whose name is Bob. When he has to go into hiding, he changes his name. It's kind of left Bob out to dry, and he's not this macho revolutionary he might have once been. Now he gets high all the time. As he says at one point in the movie, he's abused drugs and alcohol for 30 years. So he's not exactly the Arnold Schwarzenegger or Tom Cruise, man of action, knows what to do at every single moment type of character. He's kind of a bumbling, paranoid person who has to go on a retrieval journey to get his daughter back. Um, it's a that kind of sets up a bit of a political action type of story, but I think it's also a very funny movie. And to your point about my two audiences, the reactions were pretty consistent. It was quiet with with laughs at like the funny moments. Were your audiences packed houses that were just roaring with every joke, I imagine?
They were both packed houses, but the first screening, which was technically like a day or two before the film was
Mm.
released, I think it was a far more tense experience,
Mm-hmm.
and the jokes were not hitting with everyone in
Mm-hmm.
the same way that they did on Sunday when I saw it at the Vista. That was a packed house of people just losing their minds with every little weird joke throughout the
Mm-hmm.
movie. Like really, really big laughs for a film that I think is ultimately very thrilling. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
very tense. There are scary moments. It's a very powerful villain, and um, yeah, no, I was surprised. I think in the first screening that people weren't laughing more, and I wonder if the second screening had a lot of people like myself who had seen it once before
Mm-hmm.
and were able to be a little more present and not so overwhelmed by everything that was
Mm-hmm.
happening, and just kind of like enjoy the weirdness of it all.
Mm-hmm. Not to use this word pretentiously, but it's almost an elevated action film. There's so
Oh
much
yeah.
baked in here. It's not just your typical like guns and explosions story. There's so much drama to it. There's a lot of laughs, like we've said. Something I love is the needle drops in the movie. I mean, it's almost 3 hours. I think just a Google search puts it at like 2 hours and 50 minutes. I've heard other critics say it's between like 240, 245. It's very long, and I think having that elevated runtime allows you to really explore so much. Like if this was an hour shorter, you could make a tighter version of this movie with a 90-minute runtime, but PTA choosing the runtime that he does, he lets you see, I have this in my notes, he lets you see every interaction. Every scene is as drawn out as it needs to be. I mean, even from the opening shot of the movie, we can kind of get into it. It's 16 years before the modern day. 75, which I said Bob and his partner, Perfidia Beverly Hills, is a part of. They're breaking out detainees at an immigration center on the US-Mexico border, or an immigration detention center. And I mean, one of the first shots of the movie alone lets you know this is like an elevated action film by the cinematography. You have a shot of Perfidia, played by Teyana Taylor, walking on like a highway overlooking the detention center. But it was really interesting to me seeing like two-thirds of the screen is her on the freeway, and you can kind of see down below it where the detention center, like there's so much background and foreground to each side of the camera, and you can see back, I think, over the border fence. Um, and there were a lot of shots in this movie that are made for VistaVision. There's that awesome shot of Sean Penn and his bounty hunter in the desert with all the mesas in the background. Having a long runtime in this premium format, the whole movie feels elevated.
I think the format is particularly important here. I haven't seen the DCP or the other formats that are more cropped in, but
Hmm.
I think the height of the image is so important. I think that's
Hmm.
what gives it what you're describing is like you get the full like you're using the aspect ratio to its fullest. It's not superfluous information on top and bottom. So I'm curious if it what it loses
Hmm.
when you kind of letterbox it to go to a normal cinema screen. So I would recommend anyone who hasn't seen it or who's seen it and wants to see it again
Hmm.
to find the that the biggest aspect ratio possible, the tallest one possible.
Hmm.
It's almost a square image, it's like
Hmm.
it's very, it's not perfectly square, obviously, but it's not a it's not a common aspect ratio. I think the last thing I remember seeing like this was The Brutalist,
Hmm.
also, shot in VistaVision.
Hmm.
Um, and that film similarly like needed the height, it needs the grandness to show, there's something epic about the imagery. And it, to me, I've been getting into a lot of like medium format film photography the
Hmm.
last several years, and this movie feels like it's living in that space. Like you can shoot a photo so differently with medium format than with traditional 35 or digital or what have you.
Hmm.
And I think that's part of the special sauce here, especially for PTA is known predominantly for shooting on anamorphic lenses. Most of his films, with the exception of The Master, I believe, I think they're all anamorphic except for The Master. I like I'm running through them in my head. I'm like, okay, uh, I can't say for certain about Hard Eight. Boogie Nights is definitely anamorphic, as is Magnolia, as is Punch Drunk Love. There Will Be Blood, I'm 90% sure is as well. Master is the curveball where he went to a large format,
Hmm.
and that's the first film he shot without Robert Elswit, his longtime collaborator at DP.
Hmm.
Now I'm really outing myself as a PTA nerd, I think, going through the chronology like this. But yeah, Licorice Pizza is very anamorphic and like
Hmm.
really leans into the wideness of the frame and what you can do with that. Where this film, like it, I don't know, it's hard to really describe the the end feeling you get from a picture that's that big. It's I don't know.
Hmm. It's, I mean, not to be pure marketers of the movie, but it's something you have to see to really take in. I might see it a third time in one of those premium formats because it demands
How
to be
did you see it the
in.
first two times?
Just on I didn't see with any special formatting, just a regular.
So it was just the DCP.
Yeah,
The
just the
Okay.
DCP, I guess letterboxed version.
Yeah, like they released some guide on their Instagram that shows
Oh,
the
sure.
different aspect ratios that you got, but
Hmm.
you didn't feel like anything was lost.
I didn't feel like anything was lost, but I would still like to see it in those larger formats to, I guess, to see if there was anything that was. I didn't feel shorted or like I was having a less experience on a regular theater screen, but there's always still fun to be had it just really seeing it how it was shot and how it was intended to be seen.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I think it speaks to the strength of the storytelling and the performances that it can be altered visually from its original intent and still deliver, a really high level experience.
Hmm. I think everything we've talked about has kind of tipped our tipped our hats to what we feel about this movie, but I should ask you outright before we go into kind of a breakdown of a sequence by sequence. What is your overall thoughts on one battle after another? And because you're a PTA fan, where does this rank among your PTA filmography? Is this shake things up? Is this a new favorite? Is this a bottom of the barrel? What do you think?
I knew you were going to ask this question. You're making me pick between my favorite children. Um, I before this film, I don't think I ever saw a Leo movie that I loved.
Mhm.
Like I know he's a movie star. Like Inception is awesome. Gilbert Grape, like Titanic. He's just like larger than life. Like he is a mythic figure in terms of like as far as movie stars go, right?
Mhm.
He's kind of done it all. This film, what got me most excited about what I've read Vineland,
Mhm.
and the wackiness of that character seems so different than anything he's ever done. So I was interested, like from the beginning. I was curious. I love Thomas Pynchon, and I love the wacky ones. Funny enough, Inherent Vice is maybe my least favorite of
Mhm.
his movies,
Mhm.
and I don't exactly know why, because I read the novel long before the film was even a thing to
Mhm.
be considered, and I thought it was fantastic, and it's crazy and um, like really unique. I mean, Pynchon is nothing if not unique. So going into one battle after another, I was nervous. You know, you're always nervous when your favorite filmmaker puts out another movie,
Yeah.
and yet I've never really been disappointed. Inherent Vice was still a fantastic experience. It's still such a well-made movie with amazing performances, and um, but it's nerve-wracking because I don't want him to fail, like I know the stakes were high with this one. The budget is insane compared to everything else he's done.
Mhm.
And he's up on a pedestal for me. I really don't think there's any living filmmaker who's doing what he's doing. And what I think he's doing is just executing at a really high level his intention.
Mhm.
Like his films don't ever feel like they were found in the edit or made in post. Like this is an artist with a vision, with a lot of talent, who's able to get talented people together and go out and make a thing. And there's a real confidence that I feel watching his work, that I'm kind of in awe of. So to actually answer your question, I really, really, really like the film, and I think I like the experience of seeing it in a theater so much, but I don't think it's one of my favorites of his. It doesn't
Mhm.
get me as excited as some of the other ones like Magnolia
Mhm.
or even Punch Drunk Love. I think
Mhm.
those movies are just more my speed, more my personal taste.
Mhm.
However, I think it's awesome that One Battle After Another is connecting with people and audiences, and um, I feel like it's his most conventional movie in a way,
Mhm. Mhm.
which isn't the right word because
Mhm.
the whole Christmas Adventurers
Mhm.
Club,
Mhm.
like, oh boy, is that weird? I
Yeah.
mean, that is iconic Pynchon-esque, you know, like material that is not in the book, but it
Mhm.
seems like it could have easily been. So yeah, it's both his most conventional film, like the barrier of entry doesn't require you be like a film snob or like someone who loves art house cinema. Like you can go into this just because it's a big crazy action movie with a huge movie star and um like everyone at the top of their game, like, and you'll have a great time, and it delivers on everything you want from like modern action western, right? Like it
Mhm.
gives you all those things. But to your point, using the word elevated, I think so many of the details are what elevates it above just a really well made action movie or a really well made, kind of, this is a prestige film, right? I think that's kind of the
Mhm.
genre we put it in. This is an
Mhm.
Oscar movie. Like this is going to be a contender for I think
Yeah.
all of the major
Mhm.
awards, and it's I think it's funny that it's taken the world so long to come around to PTA, the mainstream
Mhm.
world, because he's just been so beloved and respected um, by his fans, by his audience, from the beginning,
Mhm.
truly. So it's nice that he's getting recognition. It's kind of silly that he hasn't won an Oscar before.
Yeah. Mhm.
And if, if he does end up winning, let's say, Best Director for this film, which I think
Yeah.
is a total possibility and
Yeah.
maybe very likely,
Mhm.
I I feel like it's one of those Scorsese situations with The Departed, where you're like, well, you're not really winning for this. This is a great movie, but you're winning for your career leading up to
Exactly.
this point, almost as an apology. It's like we're so sorry that
Yeah.
that we did not celebrate the genius that you are,
Mhm.
until now. And it's also really hilarious that other people have won several Oscars for PTA's films, just not him, just not for
Mhm.
the writing or the
Yeah.
directing, but cinematography, acting, costume, like those have all won.
Mm.
Uh, and I'm a filmmaker as well, and as are you, and we see these things, and I don't feel a huge separation between the different elements of the film. It's also intertwined. So to celebrate the cinematography, uh, it is also to celebrate the director and their collaboration together. And
Mhm.
yeah, anyway, I awards are silly. We've talked about that before. Um, they really don't matter, especially when you look at Kubrick. Kubrick doesn't have an Oscar. There's like an honorary Oscar that he got.
I don't
I
know that off the top of my head. I
Did
maybe
you ask your podcast producer, your assistant, who I assume is right off screen
that's
doing
true.
live fact checking?
Yeah, I'll get the information right away.
No, but I mean that's absurd, right? Like
Hmm.
that these people, if we're going to talk about the Oscars as a celebration of
Hmm.
the best that film has to offer, what are we doing? Like, how do we miss that hard? And
Hmm.
um, I'm excited that this is, you know, it's cracking through the whatever that invisible barrier has been for him to kind of get the real credit he deserves. Where does it rank in my overall lineup? I
Hmm.
think it's up there. It's definitely up there,
Hmm.
but maybe number 4 or 5 for me, and only because the others are just so near and dear to me. Like they're very
Hmm.
precious to me.
Hmm.
And it's been frustrating and silly to read all the stuff now. Like, so and so publication is publishing, oh, PTA's films ranked worst to best. I'm like, there's no worst. Like
Hmm.
these are all
Good.
masterpieces in their own right. I really have a hard time with with film journalism. So I hope you can I hope you can set it straight, Cameron. Because for someone to put Punch Drunk Love so low on the list is just, I think it's a real shame. And why are we ranking? Why do we got to pick? Why you make me pick my favorite, Cameron? I don't have a favorite. And it's like music, right? It's like what I'm in the mood for in any particular moment.
Hmm.
Sometimes I'm not in the mood to watch the 3.5 hour Magnolia. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? That's like
Yeah.
emotionally wrenching and exhausting. Sometimes I want the quick 90-minute like rom-com of Punch Drunk Love. That
Hmm.
again, rom-com but elevated, is like
Hmm.
this is someone who's so thoughtful and intentional with what he's doing. So yeah, like there that maybe it's number 4 or 5. If my top 3 or 4 are, in I don't know which order, but Magnolia, Boogie Nights, Punch Drunk, Phantom Thread. We haven't even talked about Phantom Thread. Oh my God, like that. Talk about a perfect movie. It's just it, that film to me is the peak of his execution. It's like everything felt like it built to that, and it's a crown jewel in my mind. And my read of his career is he achieved that Kubrick level perfection
Hmm.
in that film. And I mean, truly, like, I don't think there's a frame out of place. I don't think there's a note that's wrong
Hmm.
in the whole thing. I saw that many times in the theaters,
Hmm.
and it never ever disappointed. Like I never saw the seams of it, which happens sometimes. Like
Hmm.
a movie is an illusion, and it's kind of controlling the attention of the audience. I remember, for example, Shape of Water bowling me over when I first saw it. Really
Hmm.
knocked me out. I just thought it was so great. I saw it a second time, and I started to like see the work,
Hmm.
and that meant that it lost a little of the magic for me. Like it wasn't as perfect as I thought it would be. And not that anything has to be perfect, but when you see Phantom Thread, like what you're seeing is someone executing to 100% the intention that they had.
Hmm.
And that's just like such masterful um, filmmaking. I feel like he was able to breathe a little after that, because the next thing he does after Phantom Thread is Licorice Pizza, right?
Hmm. Yep.
Licorice Pizza, similar like level of mastery, but there's a looseness. There's like an organic like roughness to it, like a spontaneousness. I mean, Phantom Thread is everything is dialed in, just like
Mhm.
that character. Every hair on his head is exactly where it should be. And Licorice Pizza really captures the looseness and the energy of being a teenager in the valley in the 70s
Mhm.
and growing up and falling in love and getting your heart broken. Like you really get the sense that he went in with a clear plan, but was very flexible and kind of let the thing tell him what it wanted to be.
Mhm.
And this film, I think, has a lot of that energy as well. It doesn't feel to me that like hyper controlled like Kubrick level thing, like
Mhm.
there's like a formal nature to the filmmaking of Phantom Thread, and I know a lot of it has to do with the fact that they shot on location and it's a tiny little house in England, right? Like not a lot of room to move around. One battle after another, that camera is never not moving, and
Yes.
it really feels like the camera is getting out of the way of the
Mhm.
filmmaking. Like I don't think that the cinematography in one battle ever draws attention to itself. And so often what we love when we think of, quote unquote cinematography, like think
Mhm.
of the best work, in a Wes Anderson movie. That cinematography is gorgeous. The dollhouse thing that he does,
Mhm.
the dolly work that he does, but all of that is really calling attention to the technical side of things. And one
Mhm.
battle is like the camera disappears and
Mhm.
you are just you are really in it. Like the experience created is one that can't be achieved without somebody behind the camera who has full confidence in everyone that's working.
Mhm.
I know I'm just rambling at this point, but yeah, like I love the film and I love what it represents and I love that it's killing it right now and that people are so into it, and I
Mhm.
hope that it leads them into the back catalog and they
Mhm.
see the things that came before. Um, yeah.
No, I don't think you are rambling. You arrived at a point that I want to get to about the way the camera moves. I want to hold on that for a second because um, I want to go through this movie kind of sequence by sequence. To me, there's three sequences to this movie. You have the prologue, which is about, as I said, Bob and Perfidia are part of a revolutionary group called the French 75. Um, they're
And it's an
carrying
hour
out
long. It's an hour long
it's
prologue.
an hour-long prologue. Again, with that runtime, you can have that length. Um, they're doing things like breaking people out of detention centers. They're blowing up banks, electrical towers, threatening politicians. And we can go into maybe what the film is. I don't think their intention is, or I don't think they would say their intention is to hurt people, but we can go into what the film is talking about like using violence in that way. Um, it's like a 40-minute prologue, and the first time I saw it, I was entertained by it, but I feel like that section of the movie isn't as maybe in the trailers as much. You see a lot about the third act, which is kind of in the desert. You see a lot about the middle sequence where Benicio del Toro's character comes into things. Um, and on my second watch, I was really impressed with just how well he sets up this prologue before the main story even starts. It's like 40 minutes long, like you said. It is so long, and yet there's such a complete story told. And I mean that could be a 3-hour movie of their relationship alone. Um,
And that's not in the book, by the way. Like there are
yeah.
bits and pieces that come up later in the novel that kind of go into more flashback territory to see
Hmm.
them in their rebellious protesting days. But
Hmm.
the book opens in the quote unquote present with the Leo character.
Hmm.
His name's Zoid in the
Hmm.
book, but Bob. So I'm with you. I think that the prologue really accomplishes so much. And it's hard to really call it a prologue because it's so long, but I think that's
Yeah.
really how it's functioning. And it's important to know Leo's past and his history
Hmm.
before we see this very strange existence that he now has with his
Hmm.
daughter and him living off the grid with these fake names.
Hmm.
Um, and the energy of that opening 40 plus minute prologue, if we'll call it that,
Hmm.
is so distinct from the rest of the film as well. It's almost montage territory. There's
Yes.
a lot of music, a lot of soundtrack
Hmm.
music, a lot of jumping ahead in time and sequencing things. The cut is quicker. The amount of time passing is greater. And then when we get into the Sergio, Benicio del Toro,
Hmm.
when we get into that sequence and the finale, the third act, those are kind of living not fully in real time, but they're they don't feel like they have that montage element
Mm-mm.
to it.
No.
They really like let the moment breathe and kind of put you in the immediacy of the logistical thing that is trying to take place.
The middle sequence that is when the movie really kicked into high gear for me. To give some background, in the opening sequence I mentioned where the French 75 are attacking a detention center on the border, Perfidia comes into contact with Stephen J. Lockjaw. He's a captain in the military, later becomes a colonel in present day, played by Sean Penn. I
In a truly stunning performance.
I can't think of a character in recent memory. What did I write down about him that is so sleazy, scary, evil? I mean, in my mind, PTA has a history with exploring very evil people. I think this character is right up in that wheelhouse with Daniel Plainview, um, with Philip Seymour Hoffman's character in The Master. Um, I
You see what happens when these white people are in power. you know, like this is what happens when these straight white men are given too much power. It's scary. Like when they are that passionate and determined to get what they want at any cost. Ooh, you better get out of the way. Like they, all of those three characters that you described are perfect villains. They believe their worldview so completely, and all of them also have great moments of humor where we do laugh at them
Mhm,
in those films. And Lockjaw is no different than any of the other
mhm,
classic villains in a PTA movie. Like you said, he is really scary. It's easy to see how broken he is on the inside. So there's kind of a patheticness to
mhm,
him
mhm,
internally. Externally, he's scary. He's bringing the force of the military to a personal matter, right?
mhm,
Like he has
mhm.
a personal vendetta, and he's totally misusing the American military,
Absolutely.
and that's really frightening. But
Mhm,
there are enough scenes where you see how desperate and pathetic he is, that he is just such a complex and vulnerable character. And credit to Sean Penn, because it would be very easy for that character to be one note,
mhm,
whether the note was he's a doofus or he's like just a psychopath. And it's so much more than that. And because of it, it's actually satisfying to watch his scenes and his journey. It doesn't feel like total Schadenfreude, where we're just like we're hate watching it, or we're enjoying him getting his comeuppance, the way we do with great villains, where we just can't wait till they get what's coming to them. It's like there's something really tragic about him. Not that he, meets the fate that he meets, but tragic that someone like that exists at all. Like what a
mhm,
sad existence he leads, where these are the things he cares about that passionately. It's like imagine what he could accomplish if he cared about, you know, more, I don't know, ethically sound things, right? Like he's he's got his yeah,
He,
I don't know what I'm trying
he's
to say, but you know what I mean.
he's a very striking character, and I think I've heard people say that Sean Penn is in contention for Best Supporting Actor. I
Oh,
think
easy.
so. I think so. He's a very sleazy character, and Perfidia holds him at gunpoint when they're raiding this detention center. He develops an attraction to her, a very creepy, sleazy. And a little bit down the line, when the French 75 are bombing a building, he catches her in the act of planting the bomb and forces her to engage in like a sexual encounter with him, or else he's gonna start giving him up, give her up. Um, and this is where we it's a little bit down the line, but she becomes pregnant, gives birth to a baby daughter, Charlene, that she raises with Bob, and Bob kind of pushes off his revolutionary activities to now be a father. Perfidia still has this desire to carry out the French 75's activities. There's a really interesting line where she talks about almost being jealous of Charlene because she feels like she has all of Bob's attention now. Um, and she goes out with the French 75, kind of against Bob's desires to hold another bank hostage. It goes wrong. She ends up murdering someone that won't kind of back down from them holding the room hostage. And she is arrested by the police. Lockjaw visits her in at the station and tells her she's got at least 40 years of prison under her belt. If she doesn't give up the names of the rest of the 75, she'll be put under witness protection. Um, so she goes through with that, has to go into witness protection, and we watch the rest of the 75 get either arrested, gunned down, or go into hiding. This is this is a section of the film where I think you really see how much time PTA is put into this story. Is he lays out so succinctly what needs to happen. Okay, you have Perfidia going into witness protection. Now you have, well, his real name is Pat, I should say, Leo's character. Pat and Charlene having to go into hiding. They explain the trust devices, where if all 75 members are given these, they each play a respective, really beautiful melody. And we'll get to the score as well. They each play a melody, and when you're in close proximity to another member, they'll sync up, play together, and you know you can trust that person. He gives Pat his new identity, Bob, and his daughter Willa for Charlene. He tells them you have to go to Denver, memorize your new lives, then go to Backton Cross, a sanctuary city where you'll remain in hiding. I mean, there is so much thought put into this like 15-minute section of them being on the run and Perfidia having to deal with her life and witness protection. And then she flees to Mexico because she is no longer going to be under Lockjaw's thumb. Um, and it really speaks to it's a 10-15 minute clip that establishes them starting their new lives, and it feels like a full story. I mean, it feels like there's a whole history about these characters and the life they're going to have to go into that's told through montage before we jump 16 years.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And I think to put my screenwriting teacher hat on it, if we were to think of this in more traditional terms, this is the second big sequence of the film where the
Hmm.
stakes are really being laid out. Like
Hmm.
we're seeing what is really at stake for these characters, and the stakes are high, right? Like we
Hmm.
see that Lockjaw has no problem killing the members of the French 75. And we understand the severity of that threat when we zoom ahead 16 years, and all of a
Hmm.
sudden Lockjaw resurfaces looking for Bob and Willa,
Hmm.
their aliases. So yeah, I think that sequence, I'm glad you clocked it, because it would be pretty easy to overlook it as just like setting up the story the way it needs to be set up, but it's really doing so much more than that, and it's doing it so well. And he's able, through the compression of time, to pack so much story. It's a very different reference, but it reminds me a little bit of the opening montage in the movie Up, where it's like we're
Hmm.
basically watching an entire life go by in 10 minutes,
Yeah.
and it doesn't feel rushed. It is a total gut punch emotionally, and you see, I don't know, you see a life, like,
Hmm.
or a relationship, like you fully see it and feel it and understand it, and none of it's placeholder, none of it's just functional. It's all like part of the experience of the film, and getting us to fall in love with these characters.
This first section of the film ends with, I think, an incredible hard cut of baby Charlene in, or baby Willa, I should say now, in the back seat of Bob's car with the trust device. The music's building. Hard cut to Chase Infinity. This is now 16 years later. She plays the grown-up Willa. And before I saw this movie, I saw some people online saying, PTA King of the Needle Drop. And I love music in films. I love when music elevates a scene. And I wrote down four major instances of needle drops in this film that stood out to me. The first one is this shot with Dirty Work by Steely Dan playing over her, where we get a quick introduction to her and her is it karate that she's doing?
I don't know enough about martial arts to tell you what it is, but I
It's
think
a
so. Yeah.
martial arts, yeah. She's doing martial arts with her teacher, as you mentioned, Benicio del Toro, Sensei Sergio St. Carlos, one of my favorite characters in the movie. Um,
He's so wonderful to watch. I mean, Benicio is such a skillful actor, but
mhm.
I think what he was able to bring to this character was a a calm and a joy that
Yes.
played so well in the orchestra of all the other intense figures. Like
Mhm.
it, if he was as worked up as Bob in that
Mhm.
sequence, it doesn't work. I think it's that would be too much of the same. But he's able to be this grounding presence, this like really safe feeling character. Like I feel like I'm in good hands when I'm with him. He's the classic mentor figure, and it, it it's just kind of amazing to watch Benicio work at this level and get to do these things, and watch him weave in his sense of humor and his playfulness and also his intensity. And yeah, he's the best. I mean,
Mhm.
no doubt about it.
Bob and Willa have been living in Backton Cross, this sanctuary city, for about 15 years. Bob, as I mentioned at the top, is extremely paranoid now. He's a bit of a stoner. He's kind of
A
nervous to
bit
let
of a stoner.
a bit of a stoner. Sure, sure he's as he says in his own words, he is abusing drugs and alcohol.
Mhm.
Um, he's nervous about letting I don't know, nervous, but he and Willa have a big
He's
argument.
paranoid for
Yeah,
sure.
he's
Yeah.
paranoid, and they have an argument when Willa wants to go to a school dance. He lets her go, and we cut back to, or maybe it's before this sequence. We see what Lockjaw's been up to. He is in the process of entering himself into a white supremacist group called the Christmas Adventurers Club. And one of the questions they ask him to kind of, as part of his membership, is if he's ever been in an interracial relationship. He says no, and then realizes if his and Perfidia's child, Willa, is out there, that is evidence for the contrary. And we get you mentioned earlier about him obviously completely abusing his powers for a personal matter. And there's a sequence where they interrogate a past French 75 member about where Willa and Bob might be. They find it's Backton Cross, and he says, I may be paraphrasing, but he says, make me a reason to deploy there.
Mhm.
I mean, complete
Yeah.
abuse of power, really scary. Willa going off to the high school and Bob remaining at home is where the movie really kicks into high gear for me, especially on my first screening. This is where, I mean, I was just, to use this term, I was locked in for
Mhm.
this 40-minute sequence where the military is deployed. Um, French 75 member played by Regina Hall approaches Willa with her trust device so she knows to trust her and tells her, Lockjaw's coming, but you can trust me. I'm here to keep you safe. Your dad will know what to do when he finds out about this. So they escape. They head off to a nun convent, the Sisters of the Brave Beaver, I believe. I got that right.
Yes.
Um,
Yes, which is not, I don't think that's the name of them in the book, but
hmm,
it's not a monastery. What's the abbey,
the
right? Like
Abbey.
that abbey is one of my favorite sequences in the book. And
Hmm,
it's yeah, I'm glad that it had even a little screen time
hmm,
here. I could see a whole movie about this group of nuns that are in various states of hiding, and um, they're a safe house for people, but they also train with weapons and
Hmm.
grow. We learn later that they are actually growing marijuana and
Yeah.
selling it, and yeah, it's just a really fascinating location that you know they're taking it, or PTA is kind of lifting that from the book, and that's one of the major elements that makes the translation from page to screen. So I
Hmm.
was happy to see that.
Willa escapes Bacton Cross. Bob is still at home. He gets a call from the Resistance telling him what's going on. And I think the most marketable joke about this film is because of Bob's 30 years of not, or I guess his 16 years of not being in action, his 30 years of drug and alcohol abuse, he is not prepared to jump back into this life. He doesn't know the code speak. He doesn't know the passwords, the phrases he's supposed to use so that the other revolutionaries can trust that he's who he says he is. Lockjaw attacks his house. He haphazardly escapes. Like he's running through this city in his bathrobe and a t-shirt and jeans and a beanie with like a backpack, and that's it.
Which I think this is going to be an iconic Halloween costume this year.
Oh yeah. Well,
There were
it's
people at my screening dressed up as that character.
Oh, well, I mean, Colleen Atwood is the costume designer. She does a lot of big budget pop cultural projects. I mean, it makes sense that the main character is going to have a super iconic look like this. And one
Hmm.
that tells you right away, like I said, he's not your prototypical action hero. He's not up to this task. He's just kind of grasping at straws to find his daughter. So his first course of action is running into the city and finding her sensei, Sergio. And again, this is I call it the Bacton cross sequence because
Hmm.
there are two things in a movie that really make me lock in. One of them I mentioned is when soundtracks and music are paired really well with scenes. You and I have talked about our mutual love for music and like our how much we look to music as kind of a creative space and our enjoyment of it. And when it's paired with a scene in a way that makes me just have a big grin on my face or get really interested in what's on screen because of the music, um, I'm gonna be seeing that film multiple times for that reason.
I
The
mean,
other,
that's one of the joys to me of Licorice Pizza was the use
Mhm,
of the soundtrack, and the dopamine hits you get from how it's used paired with the film. And you can tell how much PTA loves music when you look at
mhm,
his work. And you go back to Boogie Nights soundtrack, unbelievable. But then
mhm,
Magnolia, there's a song, there's a musical number in the film where the
mhm,
characters just break into song for
mhm,
no real reason other than in the great tradition of musical theater. You think a character has no other option but to sing in order to
mhm,
express themselves. If there's no other way to convey the emotion. And he's also directed incredible music videos for Fiona Apple and Haim, and
mhm,
Radiohead. So
mhm,
it all tracks that he's gonna use all his usual tricks with. I like that you call them needle drops. I hadn't heard that
mhm,
term,
mhm,
but is it because it makes me think of like a mic drop, but it's basically the opposite of a mic drop. A mic drop is like something's over and we're really punctuating it, but this is
mhm.
punctuating the beginning, like the needle is dropping onto the record, and the song is starting. Now I just sound old. Like I don't
No,
get your cool Gen Z
I didn't come
lingo.
up with it. No, we'll get into them, but the ones I mentioned were Dirty Work by Steely Dan that I love.
Mhm.
Um, from this film. Hark, the Herald Angels Sing by Ella Fitzgerald, which there's some
Mm,
symbolism there. Ready or Not, Here I Come by the Jackson Five, and Perfidia by Los Panchos. Um, and in Backed and Cross, what I was saying, my second thing that kind of makes my brain tick in a movie is when you have so much going on in a film and yet you're not lost. And the Backed Cross sequence is that. When Bob goes to Sergio with the military presence in the area, the abuse of power reason that Lockjaw makes to invade the city is under the guise of they're looking for like narcotics distributors and they start invading people's like restaurants and places of business. Sergio is helping people in the city kind of evade the military invasion, and Bob kind of gets you and I have talked about in regards to story structure, sometimes when full arcs in a film take place within individual scenes or individual sequences. And I think this is that. Bob, all he wants to do is charge his phone because it's dead and he wants to call his daughter. But Sergio, in helping his community, is pulling Bob into this like a 30 to 45-minute detour. And yet
Sure.
it's my favorite part of the movie. The camera is constantly
I'm with
moving
you. Yeah.
but you're never lost. It's laid out so well. I mean, you have Bob and Sergio driving through the city. You have police and military clashing in the streets. Sergio is leading Bob through his apartment building, through some of the other stores, introducing him to other community members. Um,
He's
and Bob,
basically got like he even says it. This is like a
it's a
Latino Underground Railroad
yes.
situation. And
Hmm.
the stakes of the film, I'm totally in agreement, by the way. This is my favorite sequence of the
Hmm.
movie. Um, the stakes of the film change in an interesting way because sure we have the big picture stuff with Bob and Willa and
Hmm.
Lockjaw and all that, but for this section, the thing that I am most tense about and most like anxious about, the reason I'm locked in here
Hmm.
is watching the the plan to get all of these I assume undocumented people, into the literal tunnel and get them to the church where
Hmm.
they're going to be safe. So, this movie is you could never describe the premise as, oh, it's about a guy who stumbles into this Latino Underground Railroad situation. It's not at all part of the premise, but for this sequence, it is able to really drive things forward. And
Hmm.
I don't know, like I thought there was something really incredible about the juxtaposition of Bob's storyline getting mixed up with this other thing. And then again, to bring it back to Benicio and how well he performs and how well the character is written, the the kind of ease and confidence with which he's able to execute and save all these people. I mean, talk about endearing an audience to a character. I mean, he
Hmm.
is going so above and beyond
Hmm.
to help everyone,
Yes.
and he's also like drinking beers while driving. Well, you're like, there's a
Yes,
real
like
chaos to it.
what I love most about this sequence is those long takes where you see them pushing through stores and gathering everyone in the store to go to like the apartment building where the tunnel is. And he's just acting like a super calm friend and commander directing people. Bob is running around asking anyone he can to grab a phone charger. He's yelling at people too. There's great sequences where he's like behind counters charging his phone, and then Sergio says, "No, Bob, come, we'll do it at my house. Do it at my house." They go to a hallway. He's sitting down, plugging into outlets. "No, Bob, get up, we gotta go." They walk through his house, and he finds the first outlet he can in Sergio's kitchen and tries to plug in his charger. And he says, "No, no, no, my back room." Like you keep delaying Bob's end goal.
Yeah.
To our point about a small arc within a sequence, and you're right. It's so endearing seeing Sergio be so calm about this. He has everything in order. And, Bob's freaking out on the phone and he's handing him a Modelo, telling him, hey, like, tranquilo, tranquilo, don't worry about this, telling him even he thinks Bob has to give the French 75, that he has to answer them, what time is it? And he thinks he means it is a piece of code speak.
Mhm.
And Sergio thinks he means it literally and says
He
8:15.
answers him, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he answers him and he gives him his rifle. Like I think Sergio is my favorite character in the movie, and this sequence has, not to beat a dead horse, but it has so much going on, and
Hmm.
you're just glued to the screen for all of it. You're never lost in terms of location or character movement. And you're right. I don't think this section would be put in like the log line because it really feels like it's just this sequence. It's
Hmm.
to a degree a detour from what the overall movie story is, but
Hmm.
you never feel like it's out of place or like it's
No,
a drag
no.
and you want to cut back to what's going on with Bob and Willa. It is so entertaining and well put together, and he's juggling so many set pieces and characters. And I mean, I love how many characters are at play in this city. I mean, you have Lockjaw, you have Sergio, you have Bob. They're not even all aware of each other, but you have all of this at play within like three city blocks, and it is just so well put together.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And again, to put my screenwriting teacher hat on, should just highlight the amazing results you get when you give a character even a small goal, because it would
Hmm.
be very easy to, take away the cell phone goal from
Hmm.
Leo, from Bob, and really all he's doing is tagging along with Benicio, as Benicio is doing his thing, getting all these people into this tunnel, and we're just kind of, he wants the gun, or he wants help in some other way. Now you've got a protagonist who's along for the ride and is no longer a real driving force, and you're missing out on so much great conflict in all these scenes. But all of a sudden you give him the simple goal of find a place to charge your phone, and you throw it in the mix here, and
Hmm.
it just, I don't know, it opens up the world and allows for the character to still be our hero. Like
Hmm.
he is still on his mission. He's not taking a detour. We're just doing two things at once now. And I don't know. I think that's one of these great examples of, okay, there are logistical things that need to happen in the movie, but we also need to throw up obstacles for our character. And it's hard to have obstacles that feel organic and genuine and not contrived unless you have a real clear, even simple goal. Like the high stakes, low stakes contrast is so well used in this film, where the stakes are actually very, very high. But the idea of I just need to charge my phone is such a simple, low stakes
Hmm.
problem. Like
Hmm.
they're woven together so perfectly.
Hmm. Bob eventually gets the coordinates because he gets through to a past comrade of his in the French 75 who actually knows he's who he says he is. Um, Sergio has him escape with members of his community jumping across rooftops, and it's I think there's a point to be shown about how these are like younger characters with Leo, and they're doing all these like jumps over rooftops and climbing over fences, and every time Leo does it, he's having to drag himself over a ledge or drop down a ladder, and he can't make a jump,
Mhm.
and he falls 40 feet through the trees, stands up, stumbles, and within 5 feet is tasered by police and arrested.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a great sequence. Those
yeah,
guys jumping, like leaping through the roofs, and they're all silhouetted against the night sky. Have you seen The Warriors?
no, I haven't.
Add it to your watch list. It's a fantastic movie, in the '70s, I believe, in New
Hmm.
York, and those guys feel like they could have been one of the gangs in The Warriors.
Hmm.
And I think if you like this film, I think you would love The Warriors.
Hmm.
It's an action movie, but it's also elevated. It's smart. It's very funny and satirical, and there's a million storylines going on, but it somehow juggles them really well, and has channels it through a very simple goal of getting from point A to B.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, add that one to your list, because I think it would be impossible for me to imagine that the Warriors wasn't an inspiration for a lot of that section of the
Hmm.
movie, with the riot in the street, and then this gang of, gang, not real gang, but like this group of
Hmm.
skateboarders basically that come out
Hmm.
of nowhere to help get Leo out of trouble.
Bob eventually escapes Backton Cross because Sergio contacts members of the hospital and kind of gives him an escape route through a back alley. It's one of the most joyful moments in the movie where we pan down the fire escape and you see Sergio in the car. He says, "Hey, Bob," and Bob hugs him, like basically crying.
People applauded the second time I saw
I
it.
did. Me and my buddy were doing light claps for it. He asks Bob to take a selfie with him and hands him two Modelos, and they just start driving. And the needle drop is Ready or Not, Here I Come by Jackson 5, as I said. Such a joyful scene. Um, Juxtaposed with that, and we're breaking into the end of the last act of the movie here.
Mhm.
Is the Christmas Adventurers Club have gotten word that Lockjaw has lied to them, and because the wool has been pulled over their eyes, They need to eliminate him. When we're introduced to this underground meeting, I mean, it's a the needle drop there is "Hark the Herald Angels Sing" by Ella Fitzgerald, which is I I think it's used as such a I mean, how do I explain this? It's a obviously botching, the song is being about the birth of Christ is such a used as such a botching of Jesus's teachings, used, placed with over a meeting of white supremacists. Um,
And also the Christmas of it all, right? Like
yeah.
it's a classic Christmas tune that when you play it in a clearly non-holiday season
hmm
setting, it it feels strange. And I think that I don't like it was it could easily have felt corny, but if it was a different Christmas related song, but I'm with you
hmm
that one is it's a really smart choice.
hmm Um, the last sequence here is in the desert, around the nuns' abbey. Lockjaw also gets word on where Willa and the rest of the French 75 are hiding. They invade the compound, take Willa hostage. He confirms that she is his daughter, and so he gives her to his bounty hunter, who eventually has a change of heart because he doesn't deal in kids, frees Willa from her military captors that Lockjaw has sent her to. And we should say as well, we've talked about Sean Penn, Tayana Taylor, um, Regina Hall gives a great performance too. I mean, there's a shot where when she's being interrogated by the military and a tear just rolls down her face, because she knows Will is in danger. Chase Infinity also gives a great performance. Uh,
This is her first role on
mhm,
screen ever,
mhm,
Not the first time we've seen her on screen if you watched Presumed Innocent on Apple this past year, the series, but she actually filmed that after this, even though it came
mhm,
out before.
mhm,
Um,
hmm,
but yeah, she's like right out of
mhm.
acting school, I believe. She booked this part, and oh boy, does she um, nail it. And I'll be shocked if she does not get herself an Oscar nomination for this one.
Yeah.
Similarly iconic costume as well. I can
Oh
That's
yeah.
also going to be a popular one this Halloween. I think the
hmm
blue flowy skirt with the combat boots and
hmm
the white t-shirt, black leather
hmm
jacket,
hmm
and then of course the hands zip tied
Yeah.
together.
She does a lot with her hands zip tied. I mean, driving cars, like shooting
Yeah.
people, like it's incredible. The last act is Sergio gets pulled over, but before that happens, he drops Bob off. Bob hotwires a car and goes into the desert as well, and it ends up being a final chase between Willa, the Christmas Adventurers Club, their hitman who supposedly shoots Lockjaw and drives his car off the road, and Bob. Um, Willa gets the jump on the Adventurers Club hitman, kills him, and I mean Johnny Greenwood's score is incredible throughout the whole movie, the way it switches genres, but it's really beautiful when Bob and Willa finally get together and you actually hear the complete melody as they come around.
Mhm.
She's hiding behind like a fence post against the road and they come back together and reunite. I mean, it's a really sweet moment. At the end of the day, it's just you want to see them back together. That's the joy of the movie is hoping they'll get back together and find each other.
Yeah, well,
Um,
that's where this feels so much more conventional than his other films, which, you
mhm,
know, for the most part, don't have that clear like tangible external goal,
mhm,
right? Where, this is just about a dad and daughter trying to get back to one another after being ripped
mhm,
apart. So it does have that classic, you know, um, classic Hollywood ending
mhm,
that I mean, Punch Drunk Love has a similar one, but it goes, about it in a pretty unusual way. But no, this film does it straight up. It's the Western, the kidnapped daughter reunited with her dad, and yeah, I'm with you. This sequence is it's less fun, I think, than the Benicio sequence because it's
yeah,
scarier and it's more thrilling, and
mhm,
people are being shot in face and there are car
mhm,
chases, and we're truly worried about the safety of these characters.
mhm,
Um, and I think too, we're or I was anyway, worried about all these characters because you see how much killing happens. And, you think of action movies by prestige type filmmakers. I go to No Country for Old Men or like The
Hmm.
Departed, which we mentioned.
Hmm.
And those films aren't scared to kill main characters off.
Mm-mm.
And I think whether it's conscious or not in the audience, I feel like on first watch, I was never in a place of certainty that these two people were going to survive, And if this was a Tarantino movie, Bob would have died. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like Bob would have sacrificed himself for his daughter.
Hmm.
Um, and there's something really kind of subversive
Hmm.
about giving us the Hollywood ending
Hmm.
here, and
Hmm.
and not like giving us the bleak, hopeless ending where the bad guys win. Like there's something really satisfying both to the reuniting of Bob and Willa, but also to the little epilogue we get of Lockjaw, who,
Yeah.
as it turns out, wasn't actually killed, but does get his comeuppance in the
Hmm.
end. And that, the film ending on that note, it basically there's still a little
A little bit.
one last taste with Bob and Willa, jumping ahead a little in the future,
Hmm.
but that lockjaw thing I think ties up the film tonally. It we just spent an hour or so like in pure action movie mode, like gunslinging, western car chases, and all that. So to bring it home with this darkly funny ending to the villain's life is, I don't know. I think to me that's where I'm impressed most, that he had the confidence to do that. To
Hmm.
like to take that risk because this is an ambitious movie,
Yes.
um, in so many ways, and I would be fine with this film if it was as ambitious as it is and didn't necessarily hit everything out of the park, and yet he hits everything out of the park. Like
Hmm.
he executes on all of these things, and I don't think it's luck, man. I think it is. This is someone who really knows what they're doing, and is obsessive about filmmaking, and is an artist working at the top of his game.
Hmm. Yeah, that's about where the movie ends. Lockjaw ultimately gets his comeuppance when the Christmas Adventurers Club gas him uh, to death because he survives the shootout. Um, Bob and Willa have a nice moment where Bob lets Willa read a letter from Perfidia. Um, and I mean, we've gone through the whole movie sequence by sequence. Not to jump over the ending too much, but I think a final question I want to ask you is because of what you just mentioned, if Tarantino made this movie, you're comparing it to other action movies by quote unquote prestige directors. Do you think this is a movie that only Paul Thomas Anderson could have made?
I think so, and not necessarily because of the action, but because of the pinch on element to it.
Hmm.
I can't think of anyone else who has this much control of chaos,
Hmm.
who can depict chaos on screen without getting lost in it. I really, we talked about this a little bit, but like earlier this year, Sinners came out, and it was another big, large format movie that
Hmm.
was original, that people got really excited about. And I liked the movie, but
Hmm.
I do feel like that film got a little lost in the chaos and didn't necessarily hit all these things out of the park. I think that is mostly due to the script being kind of underdeveloped, and that's a totally different issue. But I can't imagine anyone else trying to pull off a pinch on novel. And, he's done it once before. And like I said, Inherent Vice is my least favorite of his movies. And that is a pretty one-to-one adaptation. That is a straight up adaptation, very faithful. Like there are some liberties, but it's a very faithful adaptation. And yet I thought One Battle After Another did a better job of creating the experience that you have when you're reading one of Thomas Pynchon's novels.
Hmm.
They are so outlandish and funny and heartbreaking and full of paranoia and conspiracies and action and pop culture references, and they're twisty and dark and complicated. And I think chaos is really, I mean, when you read a Pynchon novel, you really have to give yourself over to it. Otherwise, you're going to be very frustrated. You need to just strap in and enjoy the ride, and you know understand and appreciate that the person who's driving the vehicle knows what they're doing.
Hmm.
And yeah, I mean, you'd have to be insane to try and capture that on film. So I'm
Hmm.
glad that he took the liberties that he did. I've read somewhere that he said that Thomas Pynchon like signed off on everything and gave him his blessing
Hmm.
to, for all to, permission to use the stuff that is not original, and also permission to, kind of take cues from the book and go very different directions with it.
Hmm.
Yeah, and funny enough, he has a new book coming out in like a week called Shadow Ticket that I'm
I
very
think I
excited
I
for.
heard about that. Yeah. I think those are all of my thoughts on One Battle After Another. Anything else you'd like to say about the film that we
Well,
didn't
now I
touch
want to
on?
go see it a third time.
I
Now
probably
that
will be.
now that I've heard your thoughts on it and the things that stood out to you, I'm like, oh, I want to go back and focus on that,
Hmm.
as as it plays out. Uh, yeah, this was great. You know, I'm down to talk about movies anytime, especially one that is by my favorite filmmaker. But
Hmm.
I'm just excited seeing on social media and like actually out in the world the lines and the packed houses. I'm excited that people are turning out for the movie. Who
Hmm.
knows if it's gonna make its money back because the budget's massive, and
Yeah.
the marketing was also massive. I can't imagine what they spent on that.
Hmm.
Um, but I think there are still a couple other films I'm really excited about coming out later this year, like Hamnet, like Roofman. Those, have you seen either of those yet? Have you
I have
gotten a
not yet.
chance? Okay. They're
No.
not out, but I know that you
Hmm.
get to see early stuff sometimes.
Hmm.
But like, we're now entering the season of awards type movies, and I really have a hard time picturing anything. It's not even about being better than this or being more successful than this, but just being as executed to the intentions of the artist as this. Like making movies is so impossibly difficult, and to see somebody take such big swings and just hit, he's like batting 1,000 in this movie.
Hmm.
And 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 that's not, for me it's not 100% accurate. There were a couple. I have the most nitpicky notes, but I think the things that bumped me in the film only bumped me because everything is so dang perfect where it is. and
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. We
Thanks for
kind
giving me
of,
the chance to talk to someone about it.
of course. Thank you, Will, for being the inaugural guest for the podcast.
Oh, I
Um,
hope you have me back someday.
I'd love to. In 5 years, when PTA makes his next film, you'll be called back. No, I'm just kidding.
Amazing.
Um, I'll give listeners a little description of you and your work. Is there where can people find your work or find more about you?
mm,
To give yourself a
they
shameless plug.
sure. I mean, I've got stuff all over the place. If you want to watch a feature film, there's a couple options out there. Bear with us. I'm particularly proud of. It's a very weird, wacky, crazy, black and white comedy. That it's definitely like a satirical rom-com
Mhm.
with some like fun horror elements in there. And that film stars Cheyenne Jackson and Christy Carlson Romano, among some other very talented individuals. Um, a movie I made in the pandemic, is another one I'm really proud of. It's called The Mirror Game, and it's streaming as well. Both of these, you can just Google them, and they're, I think they're both on Tubi, and obviously Amazon, and you can buy them on Apple and whatnot. But The Mirror Game was adapted from a play that my friend wrote, and we shot it in 5 days in secret in a Las Vegas hotel room. And I had the best time doing it. Also, the worst time, like major panic attacks. It was
Hmm.
height of COVID, pre-vaccine. We truly snuck all the gear in to the hotel rooms and made our film in secret with a very, very small crew and cast. But I'm really proud of that. If you want to check out some music videos, I work frequently with a band called Making Movies. They're a band from Kansas City, but the lead singer is originally from Panama, so it is a like an Afro Latino American rock band. They're truly one of my favorite bands ever. See them live if you can. But we've done a lot of music videos together, and last year put out a live concert film that it played on PBS originally, but now you can just see it on YouTube, or PBS still has it on their site. It's called En La Sala, ENLASALA, and I'm particularly proud of that work as well. And then I've done series for a group called Shipwrecked Comedy, most notably and recently a show called Headless, that is kind of a comedic take on Ichabod Crane and the Headless Horseman. And before that, we did a show called Edgar Allan Poe's Murder Mystery Dinner Party, which both of those are very fun projects near and dear to me that I just directed, did not write either of those. I'm all over the place. I feel like my taste is uh, expansive and eclectic, so there's a little of everything. Oh, and then I would be remiss not to mention um, The Speed of Time, which is a 12-minute action film. It's on YouTube. Dust released it. Type in The Speed of Time if you want to watch an entire action film crammed into 12 minutes. It's my little homage to Back to the Future and the Terminator, and that was a really fun one to work on as well. So yeah, there you go. Many shameless pitches. Feel free to have your assistant cut that down however you want. But
I
yeah,
will I
there's
will
something for everybody in my filmography.
I will clip only you talking about
Oh
all of
God.
your projects for you.
Oh man.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate
Yeah.
it. And everyone, stay tuned for more from the Dual Dialogue podcast and more from this episode. Thanks, everybody. Bye bye.